Hello, Travis with Hagie here. This video will give an overview of Ag Leader's Integra display. To start off with, we have the main or home screen of the Integra. To get into settings, I'll tap on the double-ended wrench in the right-hand corner. This will bring me to my configuration setup page. Here I'm able to manage the configurations I have within the display. You can see here I have one for Hagie STS12. I could also add additional configurations by hitting the green plus in the center of the display. Say I would like a configuration for my nitrogen toolbar or when doing Y-drop applications. I can also change the name of my configuration by tapping on the keyboard, get into settings for my configuration by tapping on the single-ended wrench, or delete the configuration by tapping on the red minus. In this case, we'll go into the single-ended wrench to look at the settings for our configuration. Here I can see all of the settings for my configuration. On the top left I have my vehicle offsets. These would be editing the ones that I entered when I created the configuration. Speed input shows my primary speed source as well as my backup speed source. Auxiliary input shows the auxiliary inputs and assignments I have for my switches. Automatic swath control is where I can go in to change my on and off look ahead settings by hitting look ahead settings on the right hand side here for my turn on and turn off look aheads, as well as make other changes to my automatic swath control settings. Under equipment settings, here I just have my rate change look ahead and what I'm doing outside of a field boundary, so if I want my rate to be 0 or if I want my rate to remain unchanged. Across the bottom, if I had a NORAC UC5 controller hooked into this setup, I'd be able to get into my NORAC UC5s if my NORAC controller is connected through the CAN A side of the Ag Leader display. This was generally changed so that the NORAC system was coming in through the CAN B side, thus settings are accessed within the virtual terminal as opposed to through this NORAC UC5 settings. Below that I have offsets. These are the offsets for all of my boom sections, as far as where those are in relation to the rear axle of my machine. On the right hand side here at the bottom I have calibrate pressure, so if I have a pressure sensor tied into the system, I can calibrate that pressure sensor. Historically, Hagie did not incorporate pressure sensors into the Ag Leader systems, so generally this is not used. And then the bottom right corner I have controller settings. This is where I have my flow meter calibration, flow control delay, as well as off rate alarm errors. I also have control valve settings here. If I select that, I'll get into my control valve type, which will most likely be PWM 12 volt. My PWM frequency, gain, standby, and zero flow offset are also all here. PWM frequency for Hagie STS machines, it will always be 122. PWM gain is generally between about 350 and about 425. This is how aggressive the display changes from one rate to the other, or how aggressively it attempts to achieve rate, or how fast it attempts to achieve rate. PWM standby is the standby pressure that I hold when all of my boom sections are off, such as when I'm turning around on my headlands. So I have pressure built up on my boom, so when I do make my turn and enter back into my pass, I'm not starting over from 0. And then zero flow offset is basically a deadband for my pump. So this is the minimum value I want the system to command my pump, as this is the point where my pump begins to spin, begins to produce a little bit of flow. Hit my green check twice here to get back to my configuration setup menu. Then I'll hit my arrow to the back in the top left, which will bring me back to that configuration setup. A couple other things I can do within this double-ended wrench settings menu. Down at the very bottom of the screen I have a picture of a barn and a silo. Tapping on that gets me into my management setup. This is where I can set up grower, farm, and field as far as management selection goes for record keeping. Next tab over here I have my GPS guidance setup. This is where I would select the type of steering controller I have, whether it's a paradigm, a geosteer, or a steer command controller, or in this case I'm doing manual guidance. I don't have an auto steering system installed. And then this is also where I would see my GPS receiver and make any settings changes in regard to it as well. Last thing down here at the bottom, the little picture of the display gets me into my console setup settings. I can change brightness, volume, calibrate my touch screen. Other things to note here, features. There are a couple of features available to be unlocked for the Ag Leader Integra display, such as automatic swath control, multiple product, NOREC UC5, as well as a handful of others. Last tab at the top here is advanced. I can get in there, clear internal memory, things along those lines. We won't get into those in this video. I'm going to hit my back arrow in the top left corner here, get me back to my main screen. If I wanted to start an event, go in, apply a field, I would just tap on select event there at the top of the page. It's going to bring me into my management selection page to start off with. So it's going to ask for that grower, farm, and field. So I'm going to set my grower as Hagie. Farm, we're just going to have Hagie Farms here. And then field, we're just going to do north. After I've got all that set up, I can hit my arrow to the right down in the bottom. It brings me to my product selection. This is where I can select my product. If I had a previously created product here, I'd be able to tap on the drop down next to select product. You can see here I don't have any products already set up, so we're going to go ahead and create one. To create a new product, we'll hit that blue or green plus on the right hand side. It's going to ask what kind of product setup I'd like to go through, an application product or a mixer blend. We're just going to do an application product for this example. We'll leave it on fertilizer, and we're going to do some 28% in this application. So I'll select that and then hit my arrow to the right. It'll confirm my product name, and then I'll hit my green check mark. And now I've got that product set up, so I'm ready to apply my 28%. Go ahead, now that I've got that selected, I can hit my arrow to the right again. It'll bring me to my options page, again just confirming that my controlling product is that 28%, and then I'm going to hit my green check mark. This will load up my productivity screen, so I can see what products I'm applying as well as the productivity that I'm getting based on average speed, operating time, things along that nature. We'll also notice down here at the very bottom left of the screen, next to my home, I now have a grid button. Selecting on that grid button is actually going to take me into my run screen. Selecting on it again will give me a zoomed in view, so I can zoom in, see what I'm doing a little bit better here. On the run screen on the Integra, a couple of tabs we're going to talk about. We'll start over here on the left. I've got my multicolored boxes. If I select those, I'm going to get a tab that comes sliding out. Here I can see my coverage or overlap. This is kind of my key as to what I'm seeing on the display. Also, if I'm zoomed out, I can see what my rate is as far as whether I'm over rate, under applying, things like that. Next one down on the side here is markers. With the flag, I can add any kind of markers I would like. If I'm marking a tile inlet or a large rock or a ditch or whatever it might be, I can select those markers here, so next time I open this grower, farm, and field, I'll have those as reference. Next tab down is boundaries. This is where I can go to create any field boundaries, headlands, anything that I want along those lines in my field. And then the last one on this side is my guidance line. So this is where I would start a new pattern, either a straight A-B line, an adaptive curve, identical curve, or a smart path. Guidance line settings. I don't have GPS, so it won't let me hit new pattern, but I would just select new pattern here, fit in or fill out my application with, and then be able to select from those different options as far as guidance go. Selecting on the same box again will take me back, kind of slide that menu back off to the side there. On the far right hand side, you can see I have my target rate and my as applied rate for my 28%. Selecting on those will slide that box out. I can see what my target rate 1, target rate 2 are set to, in this case 0. And then right below that I have an M with 2 arrows pointing together. This is how I can put the system into manual through the Integra display. So if I select that, now I can use the up and down arrows just to the right to either increase or decrease my pump manually. Also below that is where I would go if I was going to load a prescription map on that RX button. For this example, we're going to hit on the single-ended wrench. This will take me in where I can set my rate 1 and rate 2. So I can set rate 1 to 10 and rate 2 to, say, 15 gallons an acre. I want an increment of 1 in here, as well as I can enter a minimum flow. So if I have a minimum flow in gallons per minute that I don't want the system to go below, I can set that in here as well. Also across the top, I have a tab for containers. This is where I can come in and I can fill or partially fill my tank so that I can keep an eye on what's in my tank for that application. Again, tapping on that box again will have that that settings box kind of slide out of the way for us. Down here at the bottom, you can see we have our NORAC system plugged in. This is where NORAC would display on the Ag Leader Integra if I have a NORAC UC5 unlock. You can also see down in the very bottom right hand corner here, I've got a triangle. That triangle will turn green when my NORAC is engaged. It'll be gray when my NORAC is disengaged. And then the icon right to the right of that, the lines, vertical lines as well as diagonal lines, is my auto swath control on and off. So if I want my auto swath control to be on, I'll select that, it'll turn green. And then if I select again, it'll go gray to be in the off position. After I've completed my event, my field, I'll go back to the home button by hitting the house in the lower left-hand corner. Brings me back to my home. Then, to actually suspend or close this event, what I need to do is hit on the single-ended wrench to the left or to the right of the event name. So if I follow that over, it's my second wrench down here. If I tap on that, I'll get my event options. I can change the name. Also, this is where I can come to close or suspend event. So I'll just suspend this event. It'll put that event into the saved folder. So in the background, I can go back, reopen it if I need to, or I can select a new event and begin the process over again.